Hello, ghouls and goblins. Welcome back to Insomniac. I am your host, Miss Red. Hi, hello. Hope you guys are having a wonderful evening, morning, night, day, whatever the heck it is for you. So, yeah. So, what we do here on this particular show is we talk about weird, creepy, and strange things. And this particular episode is entitled Dangerous Drugs. Not always what you think. And every episode, I also coordinate my makeup to go with it. So my inspiration is actually Marilyn Manson's song, I Don't Like the Drug. Because, yeah, it's kind of true, right? We don't necessarily like the drugs, but they certainly like us. So let's go ahead and just kick this thing right off, right? So our first drug is acetaminophen. Yeah. Anybody hear that? Anybody know that? So that is the technical name for it. It's also called Tylenol in the States. In Europe, it's called MAPAP and Feverol. Okay. And it's used mostly, of course, for pain relief. It's the most dangerous out of these because in most countries, it's an over-the-counter medication. Okay. The overdose on Tylenol causes liver damage, liver failure. In fact, 250 cases each year are reported in the United States to liver failure caused by overdose on Tylenol. Okay. It also causes kidney damage, bladder cancer, all sorts of nasty stuff with your digestive system. Okay. So, yeah. Some more statistics on Tylenol is 100 unintentional deaths, 50,000 ER visits, 25,000 hospital stays a year just in the U.S. because of Tylenol, because of people overdosing themselves on Tylenol, taking too much. So, yeah, Tylenol. There's instructions on the back of the bottle for a reason, folks. And it's, yeah. And if your pain is that bad that Tylenol or the over-the-counter medications and stuff are not working for you, please go visit a friggin' hospital. Go visit your doctor because you don't want to overdose even on OTC medications, over-the-counter medications. It's dangerous, nasty stuff. Number 2, and this one should kind of be a no-brainer, it is alcohol. Known as booze, beer, wine, ale, suds, shine, you name it. It's got 1,000 different nicknames and 1,000 different names and, you know, all over the world. So, yeah. About 88,000 people die from alcohol-related causes each year. Just in the U.S. So it does now. That is just people, you know, getting overly intoxicated, and their liver shuts down, their kidneys shut down, the respiratory system shuts down, the whole frickin' 9 yards. You know, the thing about alcohol that most people do not realize is that the intoxication we feel is actually our liver can't keep up with how much alcohol we're putting into our system. And so then our system is actually being poisoned. Okay? Alcohol is actually a poison. Some creepy facts about alcohol all in itself is the fact of what it actually is. So, alcohol. It's created by yeast. So they take a product that yeast like to eat, such as hops or barley or fruit or something of that nature, corn, in the case of moonshine, and they put what's called lager's yeast in with it and some water and some sugar, and they put it in there and they let it sit. So the yeast eats all of the fruit or grain or whatever the heck is in there, along with the sugar. And then and then of course they start to secrete waste. they start to poop and pee, as everything that eats poops, right? And what's left over and created from that process of them eating is called ethanol. That is what alcohol is. We are eating bacteria poop. And then, of course, to finish off the course, there is chemicals that are put in to kill the yeast off. So they stop producing the ethanol. And then they usually add sugar and flavorings and preservatives. So honestly, all of us that like to get drunk, we're getting drunk on yeast poop. And it is so dangerous because that statistic I told you, the 88,000 people that die, and that is in North America alone each year, that is just from overdosing on alcohol poisoning. That is not including, like car crashes or, any sort of accidents that happen because of alcohol. That is just people over-consuming alcohol and then dying from the overconsumption. Okay? It is the third leading cause of death in the United States. Yeah. So drink responsibly. Number 3. Benzodiazepines. Okay? They're also called benzos, Xanax, Valium, Klonopin. Okay? They are a very, very specific class of antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication. Okay? ODing on these causes respiratory depression, which means that your lungs your lungs stop breathing for you. Okay? Stroke, ulcers, liver damage, and brain damage. Okay? They are involved in 31% of overdose deaths in the United States, since they're often combined with other substances. So, majority of the time, unless a person is trying to commit suicide, they'll take these things and then they'll drink alcohol or something, and it's supposed to give them this weird trippy out high. The problem with doing this is that now you got 2 killers in your system at once that your body is being poisoned by. So the benzodiazepines, shut down pretty much everything. The alcohol makes your brain not function right, so then you don't know exactly how much of these things you're doing after you've done the booze. So it's bad news bears. You guys, do not take benzos for recreational use. They will kill you. Okay? Number 4, antidepressants. Now, this is major antidepressants. These are the ones that almost everybody is given. The benzodiazepines, they work on the brain chemicals in a different way. Antidepressants are actually benzodiazepines. They change your body chemistry more than they change your brain chemistry. Antidepressants actually block serotonin, which is one of the chemicals that makes us feel kind of zen, depressed. It helps with the promotion of fear, anxiety, pain. And antidepressants, they depress that depressive chemical. They block your brain from being able to absorb so much of it. So these ones are like Zoloft, Prozac, Cymbalta, Wellbutrin, and that's just to name a few. There's hundreds of them out there. And they're used purely for major mood and depression disorders. Sometimes ADHD, OCD, anxiety. Misdiagnosis, improper dosage, and overdose ironically lead to paranoia, suicide, heart attack, stroke, angina, aneurysms, blood clots, and the list goes on and on and on. Heart failure is a huge thing that they test for. If you decide to OD yourself on antidepressants, that's like one of the first tests that they do. If you ever end up in the ER for it, they have to take your blood. They have to. Majority of people that end up ODing on antidepressants also end up in psychiatric lockdown. Okay, whether they're yours or you bought them off of somebody on the street. Just because the whole point of this medicine is so you're not depressed, but you took enough of it that could potentially kill you or damage you to the point where they may not ever be able to fix your behavioral problems. So, yeah, it's, again, really, really helpful if you do have depression, anxiety, and disorders. But please, again, please, for goodness sake, use them wisely. Use them as your doctor prescribes. And if they aren't working correctly, do not up the dose on your own. Go back to your doctor, have them do blood tests, have them evaluate you, and go from there, because these things kill. Again, they kill. All the things on this list are killers. And yeah, we all want to see you alive and happy. Number 5, caffeine. It's dangerous because it's considered food staple in most countries. I mean, who loves coffee? Who loves coffee? Raise your hands. Who feels like they can't get through their day without coffee or chocolate or soda or the millions of other things that we put caffeine into? I mean, come on. They even have caffeine gum. So, and of course, this is something you can buy in pretty much everywhere that sells foodstuffs and medicines and all that sort of thing. So, since it is considered a food staple in most countries, an overdose of caffeine, which isn't as much as you would think, leads to heart attack, stroke, paranoia, palpitations, respiratory arrest, ulcers, liver disease, kidney stones, irritable bowel disease, Crohn's disease, dementia, esophageal cancer, which is cancer of your esophagus right here. Yep, this part right here that you swallow with, cancer of that, rectal cancer, so cancer in your butthole, and lots more. Okay. Now, the reason why this one, a lot of people like to do things like pound coffee and pound energy drinks, or eat like a whole thing of chocolate ice cream or a whole bag of candy, or drink 5 sodas a day. That is way, way, way too much caffeine. And it could, and while you may not get most of these things immediately, in time, you will have these things. And, I have family members that have had heart attacks because and unfortunately, yes, this is a stimulant that is coupled with everything, from alcohol to cigarettes to just everything. It's very difficult to not find a drink nowadays that doesn't contain caffeine. Especially if it's a drink that has sugar in it. So, yeah, I mean, read the packaging of the things that you're consuming, because caffeine actually is considered a drug, especially in the United States of America. So caffeine is actually regulated to a certain degree by the FDA because of these factors. So when you consume caffeine, that's why they have instructions on the products that contain caffeine, on serving size and things. And I know that even like some types of energy shots and things like stock shots and 5-hour energy. That's why they have the instructions on the bottle. That's almost like prescription instructions or instructions for over-the-counter medications. It's because you drink like four of those 5-hour energy shots back to back, and you will stroke out. You'll stroke out. You will die. If you don't, you're going to be very, very sick in very, very short order. Because, yeah, you just put a whole... You might as well have like, done, like, 3 lines of cocaine. Or just stuck them right in your butt. It's that dangerous. So please, again, consume your caffeine products wisely. Also, withdrawals of any sort are no fun. And that's the other thing about all of these drugs. They all can kill you if you just decide to up and quit taking them cold turkey. So, yeah. Consume your coffee wisely. Number 6, cocaine. Cocaine. There they go. Meow. Right? Also known as blow, coke, and its little cousin, crack, which is pretty much where they just moisturize the cocaine a little bit so that it starts to ball and stick together and forms kind of what they call a rock, because that's what it looks like. Yeah. And it's also known by a lot of other nicknames. But it is a stimulant, and it causes heart disease, hypertension, organ failure, respiratory problems, necrotizing of the flesh. You guys, this shit eats your flesh. Eats your flesh. You can Google it. People that have whole parts of their noses and their upper lip gone because of their consumption of cocaine and crack. Okay? All right. It causes weight loss, seizures, various skin diseases, cartilage diseases, and digestive cancers. Okay? 14,000 people die of cocaine-related deaths in the U.S. alone each year. And these are just the ones that are documented. So yes, while it's always been known as the white rich person's drug because it is expensive, there's a lot of people that still do crack and do cocaine. And the other thing is that this is one of those types of narcotic drugs that you have to keep using more and more to get the same high. Why? Because it's literally killing the tissues that absorb it to give you that buzz. It's literally eating, because that's the thing. How it works is that your body actually ingests it through the tissues in your sinuses, in your esophagus, in your nose cavity and everything. And the crystalline structure, I guess you would say, of the cocaine cuts up your skin. And it eats and kills your skin cells and your nasal tissues and your, the whole thing in your face. Okay? It liquefies it. So over time, yes, you could be without a nose. You could be without an upper lip. You could lose all your teeth. There's a million things that this stuff can do to you. So please, just leave it be. If you're feeling that you really need that kind of boost, please go to your doctor. Go to your doctor and talk to them. There's so many other ways that you can, deal with with life and with things than literally taking something that eats your face. Number 7, cough medicine. Now, this one's definitely included because, have you guys ever wondered why they lock up cough medicine in the United States? Why certain cough medications you have to ask for from the pharmacist? Yeah. Well, there was a trend in the 90s. In the 90s, they used to call it tussing, okay? And teenagers started buying cough syrup with a certain chemical in it that I'm about to tell you about to get high. And they would chug this shit, and they would get kind of a high drunk sort of thing going on. Problem is this. These ones could be NyQuil, Robitussin, Theraflu, etc. Like I said, it mostly used to be an over-the-counter style medication, okay? But overdosing on this drug causes all the same issues as cocaine and caffeine put together. Okay? So yeah. Remember all that stuff? I mean, all that stuff. It eats your tissues. It causes seizures, weight loss, respiratory problems, organ failure, digestive cancers, cartilage cancer, skin cancer, liver disease, ulcers, Crohn's disease, dementia, esophageal cancer, rectal cancer, heart palpitations, paranoia, heart attack, stroke, respiratory arrest. I mean, and the list goes on and on. There's a bajillion things that could happen to you when you overdose on this stuff, because an overdose is poison. So yeah. So it does all that stuff. Okay? And it's because if oh my goodness, it contains DXM. Okay? And DXM is dextromethorphan. Okay, so if it's cough syrup that has dextromethorphan in it, yeah, it's gonna kick your ass. And on top of all the things I mentioned previously, you can add dementia, hallucinations, intoxication, disassociation, which is where you can't find your feet, you can't find your face, you don't know where you are, you don't know what your name is, you start to kind of your personality can start to split, the whole 9 yards. Okay? And of course, vomiting. The list of wonderful symptoms. Hypoxia and nerve damage too. So yeah, this stuff, it just, no. The high is not worth it. The high is not worth it, kids. So yes, this is why if you want cough syrup that has DXM in it, you gotta go get it from the pharmacist directly. They don't put it out on the shelves anymore. And yeah, if you are a person that is large in stature and takes this thing, large in stature, large in girth, and takes one of these cough medicines because this is what works for you, ask the pharmacist, based on your height and weight, how much you should take, or your family doctor, because yeah, you don't want to OD on this stuff. I mean, the whole point of taking this stuff is to help yourself feel better when you're sick. So you don't want to die because you overdosed yourself trying to make yourself feel better. It's kind of counterintuitive. So yeah, yes, talk to the professionals. That's why they're there. They can give you the information so that you can get well safe. Number 8, heroin and opioids. So heroin and opioids originally is made from the extract of certain types of poppy seeds, right? And poppy plant. Okay, can be very, very useful stuff as far as pain goes. That's why it has been used a very, very long time by doctors' offices and stuff. Well, now we've gotten a really, really great idea of the side effects of opioids, and it's deadly shit. It's deadly shit. It just is. And because of that, the United States has actually taken its war on drugs and targeted opioid products. So there's a little bit of controversy with this because some people genuinely need that type of pain medication to get by and get through. And there's a lot of people that have things like unincurable cancers and lung diseases and things that it's like just make them comfortable. So yeah, you have heroin and opioids, and you also have things like morphine, pretty much anything that has codeine in it, all of these types of things. Any of them that you would get from your doctor that they label as a narcotic probably has opioids in it. But it is definitely no joke. It leads to collapsed veins, especially in the case of heroin use because people inject it into their bodies. Okay. Necrotized flesh, again, just like cocaine, it liquefies your flesh. Okay. Infections everywhere. I mean, because this stuff kind of destroys your skin and your tissues and everything systematically, and it also takes down your immune system. So then you're really, really at risk for, you might as well have an autoimmune disease because you're going to catch every little nasty cold flu infection that comes your way, okay? Abscesses in all of your organs. Okay, abscesses are a pus-filled sac, and just like oysters, something irritating gets into that sac. So say you've got a sweat gland, okay, that gets something irritating into it, okay? Your body will form kind of like a skin balloon around that. And so then your body, your immune system says, okay, we need to get rid of whatever is in this bubble, you know, get rid of it, eliminate it somehow. So then it starts sending white blood cells in there, like the troops coming out in full force. The problem is that now there's this big thing, and they can't get this thing out. They can't destroy it. So it just keeps filling up with dead, you know, white cells, your T cells. And so, and so that's why abscesses and things like that stink like something rotted and died when they are popped, because it is, something has rotted and died, your white blood cells. And that's what that nasty, goopy crap that comes out of them is. So I know a lot of people like to watch shows like Dr. Pill Popper and all that. Yeah, that's what you watch and come out of people's bodies. Well, opioids causes these in all of the organs too, which can cause organ failure and cancer and all sorts of stuff. So yes. It can also cause, opioids can cause kidney disease, big time, seizures, heart attack, stroke, embolisms, cancers, ulcers, hysteria, drug-induced schizophrenia, okay? Various lung, heart, nose, skin, liver, vein, and stomach issues. And it can make your hair fall out. So yeah, opioids are no joke. If you're prescribed opioids by a doctor, please do not abuse them. You will regret it. And don't take heroin. Okay? Just don't take heroin. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. The high is not worth it. You're more likely to die than get high. Okay? Period. Number 9, nicotine. Another mostly legal recreational drug. A lot of countries are scaling back on nicotine and everything. In fact, the United States is thinking of taking menthol cigarettes. I guess they made it official. I heard through the grapevine they made it official that they were going to take menthol cigarettes off the market to make them less palatable. And in the United States some years ago, I think about 3 years ago, actually made it where you can't buy cigarettes at 18, cigarettes and tobacco products at 18 years of age anymore. You have to wait until you're 21. And yeah. The reason why is because nicotine is legally recreational almost everywhere. There are certain cultures where it's also used in spiritual practice. But the thing is that nicotine, which is a derivative that comes from tobacco that's supposed to help protect the tobacco plant from bugs and things, it's actually, like I just said, it's a pesticide. It's a poison produced by the tobacco plant so that when a bug bites it, it gets poisoned and dies. Well, it does the same thing in us. It kills our little bugs, like the good bacteria in our bodies that help protect our organs and protect our well-being, because at least half of our body is made of bacteria colonies and viral colonies that actually help protect our bodies. So yeah, it kills those off systematically. And of course, the result of that is that 480,000 people in the United States, just the United States, almost 500,000 people die from nicotine abuse related diseases. And of course, it causes about 90% of lung related deaths. So, I mean, I'm still a smoker, and that's the other thing. It is highly addictive. I have not found anything that I couldn't quit on my own except for cigarettes. I have been trying to quit for years. It's highly, highly addictive. And yeah, if you haven't started with nicotine, don't start, and the reason why I keep saying nicotine is because now we also have vape, which in most cases has nicotine in it. Vape kind of doubles the danger because the moisture in vape from vaping, it also can cause you, you're putting nicotine into your lungs, which is the chemical that's going to systematically kill the good bacteria in your lungs that helps protect it from getting bad bacteria and viruses in there that can cause diseases, right? Okay. So you're killing that off. And then on top of that, you're throwing water in your lungs, which our lungs don't operate well with water. So once that nicotine is absorbed in there and kills all the good bacteria and everything that fights to prevent the bad bacteria from coming in, now you got water in there in a warm, dark, moist place. So what's going to grow once your good bacteria is gone? The bad bacteria you're breathing in. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why to a certain degree, vaping can be more dangerous than even smoking cigarettes. But I highly suggest, if you haven't started either one, don't. Don't. Because it causes all sorts of problems. Heart attack, stroke. It makes you age, twice as fast. It kills off. It actually starts to destroy your myelin, which is the insulator caps on the end of your neurons and everything in your nervous system. So it can cause autoimmune diseases. It can do, there is just so much crap that nicotine does to the body, which is why I'm trying to quit smoking, because, I like to not be miserable for the rest of my life and not have my autoimmune disease get any worse. So, if you can, quit. And the last one, okay? And this one is a big one. And the last one is love. Okay? And I'm not talking about love as the commitment love. I'm talking about love as in infatuation, physical attraction love, chemical love. Okay? It's a drug. It's a drug. So what happens when you find yourself physically in love with somebody else? Your brain pumps itself full of chemicals and pumps your body full of chemicals. It pumps you full of hormones and pheromones. It pumps you full of wonderful, wonderful, feel-good chemicals. So, being in love is pretty much the equivalent of all of these things. That's the chemical that all of these things are trying to recreate in your brain or give you more access to in your brain. Okay, is those love chemicals. That's why it feels so good to do these things. Now, how love is dangerous? Well, anybody who's been in an abusive relationship can tell you why love is dangerous, because that cliche saying of love is blind does exist for a reason and has done so for many, many years. It also, the very chemicals that make you feel good and awesome are also chemicals that alter your consciousness. They also alter your train of thought. They alter your perceptions. It alters everything, how your body moves. Your eyes dilate, your pupils dilate, your heart starts to race, your breathing gets shallower. It does. So it is actually a type of stress. So it lets out stress hormones into your blood too. And if it's like that for long enough, you could have a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. You could create ulcers. So love is a wonderful thing when it is expressed wisely, okay? And it's utilized wisely. Just like all of these different types of drugs that we talked about here, you will make decisions when you are physically in love with somebody that you probably wouldn't make otherwise. That's why it's pretty dangerous to commit to long-term things with a partner until you've been with them for at least 2 years. Because it takes about 2 years for that physical love to start to die down and wear off, so you can really see the situation for what it is, for that high to come down. Okay? It takes 2 years for infatuation to start fading, for you to know whether it's emotional love, committed love, love that's actually gonna be there when you wake up in the morning and not cheat on you and not abuse you and not run off or do any of those crazy things, you know? So yes, just as the priest in Romeo and Juliet said to Romeo and Juliet on their wedding day, love modestly. Okay. So yeah. But those are our 10. Okay. Those are the things that we all do to chase the endorphins that we all want to have. And the 10th one is the reason why, because we're trying to simulate that 10th one. And so, yeah, I think that it says a lot about the psychology of our species and how important connection is. So if you're struggling with any of these things, you find yourself, addicted to any of these things. And yes, you can get addicted to love. In fact, a lot of people are. They feel like they can't live without a partner in their lives, or they'll put up with abusive family and friends just so they have people in their lives. We're social creatures. We do it. And if we can't get it in the way that we feel we need it, then we start using some of these other horrible, nasty things to try and simulate it. So yes, if you find yourself addicted to any of these things, please, please, please seek out help. There are tons of resources out there to help you out with addiction, with healthy relationship management, with self-love and self-care. There's tons and tons of resources. I mean, every single hospital in the UK, the United States, Germany, and France, for sure, that I know of, you can walk into their emergency areas, their emergency clinics, and tell them, hey, I have a problem, and they have a program for you, whatever your addiction is. Okay? It's wonderful to feel good. But if you want to live to continue to feel good, you got to do it the healthy way, man. And besides, I can tell you from experience as an ex-addict myself, actually, technically, I'm still an addict because I'm still smoking cigarettes. But as an ex-addict to other things myself, I can tell you this. You feel so much better when you create those endorphins by doing things that are of good quality in your life. For example, a podcast, and going there and meeting your goals than you ever will with any of these. Okay? So yes. Yeah, so I hope you guys found this educational. I really, really hope you guys found this educational. I hope you found it entertaining too, and I hope you definitely learned something, because, yeah, this is a very, very serious subject, and there's a lot of people that, well, I would say probably almost everybody deals with this every day, and I want everybody to be happy and healthy, Weird, spooky, and creepy and strange things aside, I really enjoy all of you, and I really enjoy appreciate all of you, and I want you guys to come back and keep viewing this and keep going on this journey with me. I really do. So yeah. Lots of love to all of you, really, truly. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great, great day or night, and I will see you next time. All right? Bye-bye. Good evening, my ghouls and goblins, and welcome to Insomniac. I am your host, Miss Red. So I have an audio disclaimer for you guys. If you missed the visual disclaimer that was at the beginning, warning, the following presentation does contain adult content and adult language, so viewer discretion is advised. So, that being said, what could be so weird, strange, and creepy that I would give you an audio disclaimer? Well, tonight we're talking about weird, creepy, and strange kinks that people happen to have. And some of them are indeed weird, creepy, and strange. And we're not talking things like whips. We're not talking things like handcuffs. And we're only remotely talking about things like something more dangerous. Nay. Most of these are going to creep you out, freak you out, and I suggest that you not eat while you watch this video. Unless you're into that sort of thing. Then party on. We'll start you out with number 1. Sex with ghosts. Okay. Also known as spectrophilia. Literally, meaning people literally want to have sex with a ghost, or they do fantasy role play that they're having sex with a ghost, or two people or a group of people do role play where one partner or multiple partners dress up as specters and then have sexual relations with the others. Okay? Usually people like to start out that it's like the submissive mortal parties are sleeping, and then the ghosts come to visit them. Okay. There is even a woman. Her name is Amanda Large T. She claims that she married Blackbeard. You know, the pirate Blackbeard. She claims that she has married his ghost, and there's actually a ceremony. There's a whole episode documentary on this woman and her ceremony marriage to Blackbeard. She also claims that they did consummate their marriage, and he does come to visit and almost like conjugal visits with his wife from time to time. So yeah. Spectrophilia. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Autonepilephilia. Okay? So, anybody love babies? They're cute, they're sweet, they're innocent, you know, in their little diapers with their little booties and their little hats and everything. Yeah. Have you ever wanted to have sex with an adult dressed like a cute little baby? Well, that's what these people like to do. They love to dress up as adults and dress up in baby clothes, diaper and all, booties and all, bonnet, bottle, pacifier, the works. And it's kind of like a mommy baby role, and it's a very specific type of dominant submissive situation. So of course it's weird, creepy, and strange because it's almost borderline phantasmal pedophilia, but it's not. A lot of psychologists think that this has something to do with some sort of Oedipus complex, people wanting to go back to that time of innocence and simplicity in their lives. And so, yes. And that is something that you're going to find with a lot of these particular kinks. There is some sort of psychological unhingement that goes along with most of them. So, yeah. If you ever wanted to fondle an adult in a diaper, or be fondled while you're running around in a diaper and screaming like a baby, this may be the kink for you. Number 3, necrophilia. Now, almost everybody has heard of this one, and so it's pretty commonplace to know and see that this is, of course, the arousal and sexual contact with a corpse. Yes, a dead person. In fact, in some countries, it is still legal and part of their traditions that when your spouse passes away, you are allowed to keep their body at the house for like 3 days or so and do whatever you want to say goodbye to them in that particular point in time. And that is completely and 100% legal. Yeah. Some believe that the kink of certain cryptids, such as vampires and zombies and things of that nature, the undead cryptids, this would kind of go into that same kind of category because they're undead. I think that's kind of a far stretch because most of the time they're animated and they're intelligent, walking, talking creatures in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not sure it 100% relates, but there's a lot of different types of psychosis that go along with this. And there's also a lot of traditions and inherited cultures that go along with this. So, yeah. And it's a thing that's been done forever. So, we really are a weird, creepy, strange species. Number 4, coprophilia, or scat play. So, have you ever wanted your significant other to take a dump on your chest? Maybe you've wanted to install cameras into a local toilet just so you could get the bottom image of somebody dropping a deuce. Maybe you wanted to have sex on a bed that's smeared with feces. Well, if you're into coprophilia, that is exactly what you want. These people have an arousal towards feces and doing different things with feces. Now, some psychologists speculate people that are obsessed with anal play fall into the same kind of category because, let's just face it, you cannot be grossed out by the prospect of feces and do anal. You just can't. It's supposed to be an exit-only area, and so things can and probably will happen if you're going to explore that particular type of sex. So, do I agree with the idea that people that are into anal play are also into feces? No. Do I believe that, yeah, you definitely can't be grossed out by it and do that sort of thing more than once? I also, yeah. So, but yeah, scat. Formicophilia. Now, this one freaks me out, and I'm sure it'll freak out a whole hell of a lot of other people. Are you afraid of spiders? How about grasshoppers? What about ants? Or anything else that's creepy crawly, millipedes, centipedes? Well, if you are, then formicopia or formicophilia. Sorry, my Latin is a little bit rusty. It's not for you. Because this one is, you are aroused by insects. So how this works is people will volunteer to have insects tossed on their naked bodies, and the feel of these little insects and their pitter-pattering feet crawling across their skin, especially their genital areas, and their little mouths nipping at their genital areas, apparently is an extreme turn-on. I don't know what psychosis that relates to. I didn't look that one up because, to be quite honest, I couldn't get past the description, let alone go any more in depth with the research before I was not feeling well. So yeah, in my opinion, bugs need to stay in your garden and not all over your genitals. Octulolinctus. Okay. So, anybody else know? Anybody else know Latin? You do. What's oculo? Your eye. What is linctus? Lick. So these are people that get aroused by licking of the eyeballs. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, these people actually do get turned on either by their own eyeballs being licked or by licking somebody else's eyeball while in the process of intercourse or foreplay. There is numerous medical red flags with this one because the human mouth is so dirty. And your eyes are one of the more sensitive areas that could get infections. So yeah. Yeah. If I suspect that a decent amount of people that are into this one probably suffer pretty frequently from styes and pink eye. Just because of the nature of the bacteria in our mouths. Because yes, some of the bacteria in our mouths are also the same bacteria that helps protect our naughty bits. So yeah. Arousal by licking of the eyeball. Yepers. Number 7, emetophilia. Emetophilia. So, there are a decent amount of, in the darker corners of the regular web, and sites like Pornhub and Xhamster and all that, there is a little corner. And usually these particular videos are done with extremely older men and very young women. And the man basically dominates the woman while she's performing fellatio and makes her gag to the point where she vomits. Well, that is because emetophilia is arousal from vomit. Yes. Something about the projection of it coming forth from the woman's mouth, something like that, or the man's mouth, if it's a gay couple. Something about it, or having it on the skin. It's kind of like the opposite thing of food fetish. So it's a bodily fluid. So yeah. So metaphilia. Vorophilia. Okay. Also known as vor. This one has also gotten into popular culture because of the Cannibal Cafe incident with the two German guys. Okay, the guys that met up on Cannibal Cafe, and the one cannibalized the other. But it was all consensual. In fact, the guy that ended up going to jail for it in Germany, he had videotaped the whole entire process, but he still ended up going to jail because people were just, it was free. They were freaked out and creeped out, and he technically did commit murder, even though it was consensual. So yeah. And as I do believe I've said in other videos, cannibalism in itself in majority of first world countries is not illegal. Now, the assault, the harm, the murder of another human being, that is, but cannibalism is not. In fact, I know it did because of the whole thing with the placenta thing during the one about rituals and traditions. So yeah, you want to know about the placenta thing? Go back and watch the video on weird, creepy, and strange rituals and traditions. But getting back to this, vorophilia, also called vor, is arousal from cannibalism, obviously, since I'm talking about eating people. And I don't just mean in the slang term. I mean literally consuming another human's flesh. Now, this sort of practice goes right along with the necrophilia practice. There are certain cultures where this is to be almost expected because of their traditions even today. And there are plenty of different cults and religious sects, even in first world countries, that regularly practice rituals that could involve this type of thing, like sex magic and cannibalism or something of that nature. So the psychology that connects this one together is the idea of us being apex predators. And so we are drawn to kill anything that could be a food source. And we have been cannibalizing and killing each other since people were people. So there are some psychologists out there that think that deep down inside, everybody has at least a morbid curiosity to try human flesh once in their life. Just, most of us won't admit to it because it's frowned upon in most societies, and it can cause a lot of nasty diseases. And for a majority of people, the prospect of eating another person or killing another person in order to be able to do so is pretty friggin' gross. So. Number 9, disfigurement or permanent bodily injury. Now, this one doesn't necessarily have a, it doesn't have an actual Latin name per se. This one is actually kind of a newer one per se. And this is this is when you're into somebody disfiguring you, like, I don't know, throwing acid on you or something, causing you permanent bodily injury, like amputating a finger, a thumb, a hand, a foot, your nose, your ear, cutting something off or causing you bodily harm while in the midst of sexual activity. Okay? There's a specific style of submissive that's called ball crushing, and these gentlemen enjoy their testicles being squished and stomped on. This is in that disfigurement category. Like I mentioned, amputation. Some people like to have body parts removed while in the midst of activity. There is one that does have a Latin name. It is called enduracionism, and that is the removal of the male genitals. This one quite often comes with disorders that have to do with gender misidentity disorders and things, but this is on the rise because of the trans movement. This particular fetish, the removal of male genitals, whether it's having your partner try and bite them off or chop them off or whatever. Because, yes, there are a lot of individuals that, I don't know, they get with a partner, they start to feel ashamed of their body because they don't feel that that's who they are inside, and they're all hopped up on some sort of drugs, and they just say to their partner, just fucking take it off. Just take it off. You ever wanted to maim somebody? Well, maim me. And somehow, some way, they get a gratification and arousal out of this process. So, yeah. Permanent bodily injury. Number 10. This is another one that makes me creepy squirm. And I think majority of people in most first world countries would be creepy squirmy about this one too. Everybody knows what pedophilia is, right? Wrong. You do not. See, we have come to know the term pedophilia as synonymous for anybody that wants to have sex with somebody that is under the age of adult, right? The real terms is, it's actually two categories. There is hebephilia. Hebephilia is the arousal of people of pubescence. That is the people that are from the age 11 until the age of sexual consent in your particular country, which in the United States of America happens to be 14. Okay? Pedophilia is sexual arousal towards people the ages of 10 and under, so prepubescent children. Okay? And of course, there are many, many psychoses that go along with this particular fetish, because majority of the people that happen to have these fetishes were unfortunately they were abused when they were children in that particular way. And yes, not everybody that has been abused as children in that particular way developed these two particular fetishes, but these two particular fetishes have been dead ringer definitely linked to that particular life experience, unfortunately. And unfortunately, also, child brides and child husbands in some cultures is still a thing. Now, in most cases, the children are not allowed to bed with their new husband or wife that is older until they hit puberty. But, I mean, that could be as young as like 7, 8, 9, or 10 nowadays, with how things are with hormones in our food and lack of exercise and things. Kids are hitting that time of life earlier and earlier. So, and of course, yes, the whole child trafficking and human trafficking unfortunately feeds this quite a lot. So yes, and it is a federal crime in many, many countries, but unfortunately not all of them. So yes, hebephilia, pedophilia, that's the difference. Symphorophilia. So, anybody a bit of a daredevil, like I don't know, ride dirt bikes, bungee jump, cliff jump, any of that sort of thing? Well, these people take it to the extreme. These people actually get arousal from watching and being in car crashes, fires, natural disasters, that sort of thing. It's like the ultimate thrill, the possibility of death and surviving it. In fact, there's a movie, it's called Crash, and it's about this couple that they get their kicks together by getting into car crashes. So yeah, I mean, this is like thrill seeker to the max, to the point where you literally get your rocks off from cheating death one more time. And yeah, it's like, I could see that. Adrenaline. You're in an extreme this is like adrenaline junkie to the extreme. So yeah, I can kind of get that. But yeah, if that sort of thing is for you, you are a symphorophilia. Number 12, urophilia. Yes. It's also called water sports. So if anybody's ever mentioned water sports to you in referring to a kink, that's what this is. It's also called as most of us know it, golden showers. So something about the fact that it is bodily fluid and that it's warm and this and that, and some people even like the taste of it and religiously drink urine. Something about that whole thing, maybe it reminds them of an actual shower. I don't know. But something about that whole thing turns them on. And yeah, so, and of course, that whole process is, whether they get peed on or they enjoy peeing on others or drinking it together or something like that. So yeah, that's urophilia in a nutshell. Number 13, hematolagnia, also known as blood plaque. So, yeah, do you like the color red? Does it turn you on when you see things that are crimson? Does the idea of eating raw meat excite you? Any of these things? Do you find any of these things enjoyable? Well, you might be into hematolagnia. Like I said, also known as blood plaque. So, with this particular one, there's a lot of studies that have been done as far as people that are into vampires or any other bloodthirsty cryptid and things of that nature. People who have experienced anemia at some point in their life, which is a blood disease where basically the iron in your blood doesn't develop correctly. And a decent amount of people that have had anemia at some point in their lives can develop this particular fetish. Not all, but a decent amount of them, just out of an instinct that their body happens to do. It's an instinctual impulse. So this is another one that is definitely linked into those apex predator primal instincts of, we're born to kill. So of course, blood gets us excited. It tells us to, hey, pay attention. Hey, be aware to what's going on. And on top of that, it is a bodily fluid, something warm that comes from the body. So it's pretty natural, albeit can be very unsanitary and gross, depending on how you do it, to have number 13. So hematolagnia, yeah. We get to the end here. I actually have a bonus fact for you today. Yay! 2 bonus facts. So, number 14, hybristophilia. So, hybristophilia, why did I include this one? Well, I included this one because it's weird, creepy, and strange facts. And anybody that knows me knows that I have a fascination with criminal psychology. So, of course, I had to include the love of killers, lust, and murder. The love to kill, which is erotophonophobia. Erotophonophobia is a love of a person dying. So, yeah. Yes, there are people that, you always, when you're reading about serial killers and when they finally get caught, there's, like these ladies and gentlemen that write to them in jail and they're like, oh, I love you, marry me, blah, 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 blah. There are people that actually have a thing with people who kill. They have a fetish towards them. Again, probably that primal instinct of, oh, they can protect me. They can be a provider, even though it's a little twisted and warped in the way of their thinking. And yes, unfortunately, a decent amount of these individuals that choose to do this behavior also have experienced some sort of abuse in their childhood. So it's that whole, dominant protector and defender, even though they're twisted and insane. But, I'm cool with it because that's what I experienced in my childhood. It's like one of the most weird, effed up Oedipus complexes ever. Okay? And as far as erotophobia or phonophilia, the love for a person dying, a decent amount of serial killers, we could say, would be under that one. For example, Jeffrey Dahmer, he actually got sexual gratification and arousal from killing his victims. So yeah, he got his rocks off from killing his victim. So he would be an example of erotophobia or erotophobia. So, yeah. Again, lots of twisted psychology there. Yeah, but they do exist. And finally, the definition of fetish. So I don't know if you guys know this, but fetish didn't always mean what it does to us today. Fetish actually started out as a term that meant something that you are a huge fan of or miraculously obsessed with, okay? So yeah, if you say I'm a huge fanatic or a huge fan of something and you participate in it or something on and it doesn't have to be anything sexual. It can be, I don't know, stamps, guns, exercise, makeup, podcasts. It is considered by Old English a fetish, okay? What changed this was actually Aleister Crowley. So when Aleister Crowley started with the OTO in America and set up his Disciples of Thelema in America, he was a big gung-ho fan of sex magic. Okay? I mean, the man was sex, drugs, you name it, debauchery, the whole 9 yards. That was pretty much the epitome of his life. That's why he was labeled the wickedest man in the world. But yeah, at some point, the aristocracy members that were parts of the OTO started to, when they were talking to each other in regular public company about things that were going on in the temple, because by the temple rules, whatever happens in the temple stays in the temple sort of thing. So they would start to refer to it as their fetishes, these different rituals. And so therefore it just went from there, and it just became kind of the en vogue thing for it to, as history, it just became classified almost implicitly nowadays as, you have a fetish. That means that you're obsessed with some sort of sexual kink. So, just a little fun fact. But, of course, that's also kind of weird, creepy, and strange. Because, yeah, the social psychology of it is a little weird, creepy, and strange when you really start to think in depth about it. So, but yes. And, yeah. So, if you guys have any more suggestions for any more shows that you would like to see, any more topics you would like to see, please leave comments on this video. I would be happy to hear them. And yeah, bonus points for anyone that can figure out which 4 of these Miss Red is into. Because yes, while I was doing my research, I realized, oh my goodness, I happen to like 4 out of 13. So, and if you say number 13, You say number 13, we're done. We're done because, yeah, or not number 13. I'm sorry, not number 13. Number 10, the hebephilia and the pedophilia. If you say that one, we're going to rumble because that's just disgusting. That is revolting, horrible, and gross. I'd rather, well, it's not the formicophilia. I'd rather be said, oh yes, I want bugs to crawl all over my body and nip my genitals before being called a hemophiliac or a pedophile. So let's not go there. No, dirty birds. So, all right, but yes, as I said, if you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comments and questions below. And yes, if you have any more ideas of topics that you would love to hear me speak on, yeah, just message me, message Dr. Quack, and we'll see what we can do to help you out with those. But until then, stay weird and creepy and strange, my lovelies. Bye-bye. Good evening, Michaels and Goblins. Welcome to Insomniac. I am your host, Miss Ray. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day or night wherever you are. And I hope that you're ready to learn about a new cryptid. So, yes. So, which cryptid do we have in mind here? Well, you know, as Falling in Reverse says, I'm not a vampire, but I feel like one. Yeah. So, but yes, that is the subject of our thing tonight. And yeah, could you be a vampire? I don't know. Let's learn about these weird, creepy, and strange facts together, and then you can decide for yourself. So, a little bit of back history. So, vampires originally were just undead creatures who feed on the blood and energy of other creatures. And they were actually more like zombies up until the 18th century. So, just kind of nasty, undead, mindless, bloodthirsty things. I mean, some of them did have some intelligence to manipulate and everything, but it was more primal, more animalistic than a lot of what we see in film and books and things today. So the swarthy, pale, charismatic, sexy lovers of humans didn't really come about or even start to be a thing in cultures until about the 18th century. So yeah, that being said, on with fact number 1. So porphyria. Porphyria is actually the number 1 illness that a majority of older cultures defined as being the signs of being a vampire. So what is porphyria? It's a liver disorder, in which porphyrins, which is a type of enzyme that your liver filters out for you. And it builds up in your body because your liver is no longer functioning properly due to many different things: alcoholism, drugs, just illness, and all that sort of thing. It causes pale skin, light sensitivity, fevers, chills, seizures, delusions, high blood pressure, purple urine, and random bleeds, like nosebleeds, bleeding from your tear ducts, bleeding from your ears, pretty much any place you could have an orifice. In fact, when the porphyria gets super duper bad, people will actually start sweating blood out of their pores. So yeah, it is almost purely a genetic disease. And for those of you that have blue blood in your veins, you're some of the main culprits for this particular disease, because yes, this was a big one that made many European royals go absolutely batshit bonkers out of their mind. So, and most of them unfortunately have very painful lives because of porphyria. But yeah, so basically, since its discovery in the mid-1800s, this particular disease has been dubbed the vampire disease. So that is where we start. Number 2, other diseases that have been labeled a possible sign of vampirism throughout the ages were tuberculosis, influenza, the plague, rabies, anemia. So pretty much anything that had to do with your nerves and could make you hallucinate or would do something funky with your blood or anything like that, or your skin, you could be labeled as a vampire. There was tons of reason why they labeled people as vampires. Honestly, the reasons why they labeled people as vampires were just about as numerous as they labeled people as being possessed or being witches. So, Yeah. Uh, yeah. The strange, crazy things that society and the human brain comes up with to try and explain phenomenon they don't understand entirely, right? Right. Number 3. First documentation of vampire origins was actually from Mesopotamia. So yeah, like I said, been around forever, been around for millennia. They believed that battles with demons could lead to possession. The possessed was then considered a vampire. So there was one particular demon, and you have to understand, in Mesopotamia times, demons aren't necessarily all bad. They were usually kind of two sides of the coin. In fact, the idea of a god and the idea of a demon in certain cases in Mesopotamia were interchanged. So there was a particular female god / demon, and her name is Liliu, which is where Lilith in the Hebrew Bible comes from. And one side of her, she helped people with different things as far as heartache and money problems and stuff. But the other side of her went out at night and ate babies and seduced men and sucked their blood dry, and also seduced women to recruit them and infect them with the demon god spirit. So yeah, very, very interesting and a little bit creepy. All right, number 4. Many cultures still stake, decapitate, and burn the corpses of relatives and members in their community that die from blood and nerve-related diseases. Seriously, it still happens today. It still happens today. You can look it up. In fact, I think the earliest one I saw was like the mid-90s. And that was it over, of course, in the Serbian area because of some of the history and stuff that went down in that area of the world, Serbia very, very much believes and fears demons and vampires to this day. Even people of modern culture and scientists in this area still very, very much fear possession from a blood drinker or a demon or a zombie or a werewolf, a lycanthrope. They very, very much fear this shit. But yeah, because of this, desecrated grave sites have been found all over the world. And how different cultures desecrated their deceased loved ones and relatives always varies. Some of them, they cut the heads off. Some of them, they cut the limbs off so they can't, get out of the grave and run away. Some of them, they would put weird stuff like iron nails or silver coins or an obelisk, which is like it's an iron or silver egg of just raw metal into the mouth of the corpse. Or they would put sais and swords and shit in certain configurations around the body, and then they would take the cremated body and arrange the bones in some sort of way. In fact, the skull and crossbones thing that's really popular with pirates, that's where that came from. It's actually a configuration that was popular during Roman times that they would do to victims of diseases that they thought led to vampirism, like the ones I mentioned, porphyria, tuberculosis, whatever. That was a pretty popular way to lay your community members' bones in the ground so they don't come back and haunt you as a vampire. And yeah. So yeah. Crazy, strange shit. Number 5. The romanticism of the character of the vampire first appeared in 1819 in John Polidort's story, The Vampire. Okay. So this is kind of a weird, creepy, and strange fact because around 1819, of course, we had civil unrest with things like revolution, and we still had a lot of disease going on, and the world building up to that precipice point of World War I. And so there was a lot of strange things going on, and there was still a lot of mystery in the world. And it's weird and creepy and strange because when John Polidor wrote his story, The Vampire, which is what inspired the film The Sunrise that Nosferatu is in, it kind of revived the idea that vampires in the historical mythological sense still walk the earth and still prey upon humans and our livestock and heaven knows what else. So I don't know. It's kind of like the whole thing with what is his name? The guy that did the radio show about the alien invasion that everybody went berserko about. Starts with an O. Is it Oscar Wilde? I think it's Oscar Wilde. But anyways, it's kind of like that. It's weird, creepy, and strange to see how quickly and how effective mass hysteria is. Because there was actually a mass hysteria that went on during this time. And the other thing that makes it interesting and strange is that there has been kind of a mass hysteria about vampires or lycanthropes, which is werewolves, were-creatures, zombies, some sort of highly infamous cryptid every century since the dawn of humanity. And it always correlates and coincides with war and civil unrest. So it's just a lot of interesting cultural correlations with how we handle fear. Number 6, going to modern times now. Today, there are 5 different recognized vampire types. Okay? These are the ones that are most widely recognized throughout the world as people who identify as vampires. Individuals that identify as vampires, these are the 5 types that are most identified. And it is sanguinarians, sanguinarian vampires, energy vampires, blood-borne vampires, spirit-borne vampires, and cursed or possessed vampires. So what all these mean? Well, sanguinarianism is you feed on blood. Simple as that. Energy vampires are those that they claim to feed on the energy of others. Okay, so they drain energy from other life forms, especially human beings. Blood-borne vampires are those that it's a genetic thing. Like, for example, porphyria is in your genes. Then you're a genetic vampire. Spirit-borne vampire is an individual that displays the more psychological disease traits that goes along with autoimmune diseases and goes along with different neural and blood-borne diseases that just makes them more prone to habits that we identify as more vampire culture habits. Okay? And then the cursed and possessed. The cursed and the possessed means that it is speculated that you have done a ritual or something in which you tried to invoke a spirit or a demon, and now you are cursed and possessed by that demon or spirit, and they are driving you to want to drink blood and shed blood. Okay? Now, sex magic vampires fall into the category of energy vampires. That's why they're not really identified in this. The reason being is because the biggest, the whole point of using sexual activity in order to trade energy with your partner is that's what you're doing. You're trading energy. You're trading bodily fluids, but you're not trading blood. So that's why there's a difference there, and that's why sex magic vampires are considered energy vampires. So, yeah, pretty simple. Number 7. Many vampire groups exist today, and they're usually called clutches, broods, clans, or covens. Yeah. The whole coven thing actually came about because of the whole thing with King James. You remember in my witches video, and I said about the thing with the witches, and King James wrote that book about what was it, the Daemonus Maleficorium or whatever. Yeah, vampires are in that book too. So yeah, coven is kind of actually a universal term to describe groups of cryptid creatures that are meant to come do harm to humanity by the will of the devil. So, but yeah. So, but there are actually clans, covens, groups that exist today. Most of them are underground. Though some of the groups have become quite famous due to public intrigue, honestly. For example, the Vampires of Austin in Austin, Texas, they have grown great acclaim because of their king and queen, Miss Daly, especially Miss Daly, because she does a lot of work as far as charity work and modeling work and stuff. So Logan, her husband, and her have done a heck of a lot of interviews with a whole lot of different places, trying to educate people on modern vampire culture and, you know, the pros and cons and what it's like to actually join a vampire clan, and why you would want to do so. So, but yeah. So yes, still around today, many individuals still identify as vampires. Number 8. There again, number 8 goes right along with number 7. There are religious sects. sects. Religious sects that worship Vlad the Impaler as a god. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure that the majority of you do know if you are a fan of horror fiction or horror history, that Vlad the Impaler, he was actually a king. And he was a king in Romania, I think. Wasn't it Romania? And the Prussians and the Persians were at war with the Romanians for a very, very long time. The Persians wanted to conquer their land and stuff, and the Romanians were not having any of it. So Vlad, to the Persians, were just brutal, and his favorite thing to do with Persian prisoners of war was to, you know, strip them down naked and beat them up a little bit to tenderize them, and then take them and put them while they're still alive on the top of a spike, and then slowly but surely their bodies would slide down the spike and impale them. So it was a very horrible, painful death. And of course, these stakes were displayed by the hundreds outside of his castle walls. And it was a demonstration of, hey, don't screw with the Romanians because I'm willing to go crazy to protect my people. And actually, a decent amount of people that live in Romania actually call him Vlad the Conqueror, or they call him Vlad the Vlad the Hero, because in his home country he was a hero. So yeah, it's like, but because of the fact that he used such bloodthirsty practices to make the impression known of that he was so dead serious about protecting his people and his throne, he was speculated to be a demon or a monster or a vampire by the Persians and some other countries. So, excuse me. So, people nicknamed him Vlad Dracul, or Vlad the Devil. Okay? And so that's where the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula came about, and thusly he entered the realm of vampire lore. And so nowadays, there are actually worshippers, especially in Romania and actually around the world now, for people who are vampire fanatics and lovers, and they worship him almost like on that realm of gods of vampires. Like Lilith would be considered one of the gods. She would be considered the mother of vampires, and Vlad would be considered, like one of her sons or one of her princesses, or not princesses, princes, maybe one of her kings. And so it's a really interesting religion, kind of how do I put it, a sub-branch of vampirism, the religion. So yeah, very interesting, very gory. If you like blood and gore stories, read about Vlad the Impaler, and read about some of the interesting rituals that some of his followers, his worshippers, use to commemorate him from across the world. So, number 9, the kink of blood play. So, blood play was actually considered illegal in most cultures until the 1980s. So, here's the funny thing. Here's the sitch. Things like assault and all that sort of thing, of course, have always been illegal. But blood play itself as an intimate act was considered illegal until about the 1980s, at least in the United States. In the UK, it's still considered highly controversial, and I think it's still considered a misdemeanor. But for most of the first world countries, once the United States were willing to consider blood play an actual fetish, an actual sexual kink, then they were like, oh, okay. And it became so as a legally sanctioned, recognized thing in the 1980s when vampirism became an actual religion. So, yeah, there's a religion of vampirism. And like I said, there are lots of different houses, as they call themselves most often, or clans or covens that are kind of underground because of the social bias, because of people that don't understand what they represent and don't understand exactly what they do. But yes, they are a government-sanctioned religious organization in the United States of America, and thusly blood play, which is the consensual exchange of blood between two sexual partners, is also legal, and as long as it's consensual, it's not considered assault. Number 10. Okay, so yeah. So you got these consensual donors and stuff, right? Because, okay, you got the vampires, so what, are they just going to continuously drink from each other? No, no. Actually, most of these organizations and clans, they also have a very coveted and special subclass in their coven, their clan, and these donors are called swans. Okay, so swans are people that voluntarily are submissive either to one particular vampire in the group, or maybe submissive to that specific community. They are actually under contract with that particular clan or that particular host, which is the vampire they're contracted to. And they have to follow certain rules in order to be considered a viable swan. They have to eat right. They have to make sure that, if they're, getting blood transfusions or they're having, sexual interactions with partners besides being part of the vampire world, that they use the utmost care and protection so that they don't get STDs and illnesses. Just, some groups that the swans are required to have certain nutritional requirements, the whole 9 yards. So it just depends on the group. It depends on what the swan is willing and wanting to do as far as their submissive participation. And just, swan. Number 11. As I just mentioned, modern vampires are bound by very, very strict rules of consumption, okay? So most modern vampire groups, especially if they want to continue to keep their sanction as a religious group, they have to have very, very strict rules about consumption, okay? So the idea that a house of vampires is a bunch of murderous, maiming serial killers is a bunch of bunk. Because otherwise they're not going to be allowed to stay for long. In fact, most of those contracts do state that if you know of anybody in the group that goes to assault or maim or murder somebody while they are in the bounds and contract of the house or clan that they're a part of, they are required to immediately contact the council of that house, and B, immediately urge the council to contact the authorities. Okay? So yeah. And like I said, the swans, the donors, they're all willing participants that have their own type of contract too. So if they see anything shady or sketchy going on, they are bound by that same thing. They have to tell their superiors, and then they have to contact the authorities, because it's a very guarded privilege to be able to practice blood play and have it sanctioned by the law. And most practicing vampires don't want to go by that. Not to mention, majority of people that identify as vampires are extremely territorial. And so it kind of goes against their grain and their instincts as individuals, because they wouldn't want it done to them. So why are they going to do it to somebody else? That's just asking for trouble. That's asking to be possibly, punished, exiled. And trust me, if you get exiled from one group or organization, especially if they're one of the more popular ones or they are one of the more prestigious ones, every group in probably a 200, 300 mile radius is going to hear your name and know about your ass. So you'll be excommunicated for ever. if you break those particular rules. So yeah. Killing and assault is strictly forbidden. So yeah. Like, while they may empathize with the darker aspects of culture, the goth culture, the metal culture, the horror culture, yes, there's very, very strict sets of rules. And dirty vampires aren't sexy, okay? It kind of ruins the mystique, and it ruins some of the appeal. It's just not sexy, okay? It ruins it. So yeah. No maiming and killing, strictly forbidden. Number 12. Now, if you have joined a really good house, really good coven, or brood, or whatever they call themselves, then they will educate you on the hazards and the health concerns and things. But that's why number 12 is important, is that people have to understand that consumption of blood or energy or bodily fluids comes with the risk of diseases and pathogens and, poisoning, manic depression, hysteria, bipolar disorder, and even death. So, yeah. And like I said, if you decide that you want to join a house or a coven or something, and they're a good one, that should be one of the things that they do before they ever even let you sign any contracts, to be a part of the organization. Because, yeah, science is science. And science has proven that the things that make you a vampire or make you considered a vampire can cause damage if it's done improperly. And you have to be willing to take care of yourself and take care of the other members of your house. So, yeah. Number 12. Watch that consumption point. And number 13. Okay? So, mainly this. Number 13. While being part of a community may seem great, careful analysis and research should be done before choosing to join a clan or even participate in blood play. There's, like I've said, there's social stigmas, there's disease. You could possibly, somebody could go off the rocker because they aren't doing, because one of the things that I know of in some clans and houses, they do programs where they check in on your mental well-being and stuff to make sure that you're not getting some sort of weird, messed up PTSD or turning into a sociopath. Because if those happen, unfortunately, you're out. You're out, because you can't be mentally unstable and practice this safely for yourself or others. You just can't. Okay? So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. So if you are a person that's genuinely interested in joining a house or a clan or a coven, ask questions, what their policies are, what sort of things as far as emotional health and cleanliness are required. That sort of thing, especially if you want to be a swan. Whew. Yeah. But, so yes, do your due diligence, do your research, do your careful analysis, find out what your requirements for membership are, and do all that stuff first, because it will make your journey so much easier, so much safer, and so much more enjoyable. But, so yeah. And those 13 facts are just the tip of the iceberg as far as vampires go. There is a plethora of facts, history, creepy stories, knowledge, lore, you name it. Um, so many different subgenres and subcultures that go along with the concept of the vampire. Just vampires and the different variations of what they are and what they do and how they do it have fascinated us the world over. And I think part of the psychology of that is, especially the more we humanize the vampire lore, the further we go along, is that primal urge to be immortal, for one, and to have the excuse to satiate certain primal urges, for two, and it be socially acceptable in some way, shape, or form, almost like an anti-hero sort of thing. But, and yeah, who doesn't want to be sexy and seductive and mysterious, But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I, of course, enjoyed very much researching this one because of my interest in vampires. And yeah, so I will see you guys next time. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening or morning or whatever this is for you. Stay weird, stay creepy, stay safe, and stay strange. Love you guys. Bye-bye.